Hi guys, it's Tiffany here from the Happy Homeschooler. I am actually here with Danny over at One Single Joy, and we are doing a collaboration for homeschooling in the United States versus Australia. This is part 2, and I'm so excited to have Danny here and be able to get a little bit of insight of what it's like to use the exact same curriculum but in another country. If you have not already, be sure to subscribe and then go over and check out Danny's channel over at One Single Joy. She has a really awesome channel, and I'm going to let her tell you a little bit about it, and I'm just going to go through those questions with her right now. Hi, Danny. Thanks so much for being here.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
My very first question is just, I would love to know a little bit about you and about your channel.
Okay, well, my name's Danny. I'm a single mum. I'm from Sydney, Australia. So it's just me and my daughter. She's 12 years old. And we've just entered our 4th year homeschooling. So my channel basically reflects different aspects of my life. So homeschooling is a big chunk of it, but I also do other things like grocery hauls, what we're eating, meal planning, and I'm a Christian, so I share on different Christian aspects and different Bible studies and things like that as well. So it's a bit of a mixed bag, but hopefully there's a bit of something for everyone.
Awesome. Okay, so my very first question is just kind of what laws you have, and if it's the same in all of Australia or if it's different in different territories or states.
Okay, good question. So it's not the same in all of Australia. We have 6 different states and 2 territories. So that, it's basically 8 states. And in every separate place, there is different laws and different legislation, different policies with homeschooling. I have heard that where I live, it's the strictest. And when I heard that, I was a little surprised because I was like, oh, it was pretty easy. But now that I've heard sort of what it's like in other states and even in other countries, I'm like, oh, we're kind of ripped off. Like, it is pretty strict here. So it is a perfectly legal and legitimate way of schooling your child here, where I live in New South Wales. It's perfectly legal. But you do have to register, just like we would register at a school. We have to register for homeschooling. And there are a lot of boxes we need to tick. But the good thing is I can tick those boxes however the heck I want. And that's my right as a homeschooler. I can do that. The law can't force me not to. So that's what we do. We get certificates. The government gives us certificates, in order to homeschool. And the maximum is 2 years, and I've been able to get the maximum every time, which is wonderful. Such a blessing. So yeah, it's a bit of a rigmarole, but it's only every 2 years, and it's not that bad in the big scheme of things.
Yeah, I mean, that is nice that it's only 2 years. We definitely have it every year, but it sounds like a little bit less of a hassle than you are, at least where I'm located. It's a little bit less of a hassle than yours. So you don't have to submit anything at the end of the year. You just, after you're approved, you're good to go for 2 years.
Yeah, we don't have to submit anything. The only thing is when the assessor comes back, and they do actually come to your home as well, because they want to see that, you're living in a safe environment. You actually have to have an address. Like, you can't be living in a tent or anything like that. You need to have an established home. So they come to check that, make sure, it's safe and everything, which is, I appreciate that, they're making sure there's no abuse or anything happening. And then they want to see work there. So they will ask, can you show me some work samples from the last couple of years? And it's not that intensive. You just show them, this was at the beginning of this, math book, and then you show them at the end so they can see the progress.
Okay.
So the last one I did was a few months ago, and because of COVID, it was on Zoom, which was such a relief to have it on Zoom. And I literally just held up the work pieces, and she was like, yep, all good. She's seen that it's being done. And then they do want to see like a plan for the next couple of years. So they want to see what curriculum you're using. They want to see how you're going to tick those boxes. So yeah, I've never had any issues with it. I've never met anyone that's had any issues with it. I think they just want to see, you're invested, you're committed to this, to your child's education. You've got the resources that you need, and yeah, that's it.
I bet Sonlight is helpful in that because you can show them.
Yeah, I literally don't have to do anything. I'm just like, here's the schedule. So yeah.
That's awesome. So how popular is homeschooling in Australia?
It's getting more popular every year, especially after last year. There's been like, the education department has been inundated with applications to homeschool. There's about roughly 20,000 kids that are homeschooled in Australia at the moment. And our population is about 28 million, I think. So it's a very small percentage, and it's nowhere near as popular as it is in the States. And it's one reason why I started my channel, because we don't have that much Australian homeschooling help on YouTube. And when I started, or just before I started to homeschool, the American YouTubers were amazing, like absolutely amazing, and helped me so much. So I thought we need some more Australian ones. So it's slowly becoming more popular. The stigma is slowly eroding, but it's still there. And so that's something, as homeschoolers, we're trying to show that, it's perfectly legal and legitimate. Our kids are not weirdos. They're not unsocialized. It's all good. It's okay. And, there is progress, but it's very slow progress.
Yeah, it's funny because I was raised as a homeschooler, hearing, even in Australia, there's that same stigma. And I mean, even when I met my husband's family, one of the first things they said to me was, "Oh, you're quiet. Oh, that's right. Like, you're a homeschooler. That's why you're quiet." And I was like, come on now. Like, people in public school are sometimes quiet too. Why would you put that on me? It was just kind of funny. They just had that, like, instantly, like, "Oh, you're shy. That must be a homeschooler," or, "Oh, that explains why you're shy."
Yeah.
So funny.
Exactly.
Well, so what made you decide to use Sonlight?
It's a bit of a story, actually, but in 2017, I had a friend start homeschooling, and in my mind at that time, at the beginning of 2017, I was like, homeschooling sounds great for you. Just no way in the world I could do it. Like, nah. I don't have the patience. But when I went and looked at her stuff, and she was using Sonlight, I saw that it broke it down, by day. Read this chapter, do this. And I was like, oh, maybe I could do that. And that was it. It was a little seed planted in my mind. And then all that year, all of 2017, I was just pounded by God to look into homeschooling. Like, he really called me to it. And I've talked about that on my channel. Like, there's nothing in life that I've been called to more than homeschooling. And there's nothing more that I've been convicted about. And so I did look into Sonlight, but it is extremely expensive to get it to Australia. And there's no download and print option with Sonlight. So I just literally could not afford it at the beginning. I would have loved to, but I just couldn't. So I've been using mostly the Good and the Beautiful and a few other things for the past 3 years. But then last year, I could see that my daughter was sort of growing out of that. And she was heading into, here in Australia, grade 7 is actually high school. We have primary school and high school too. That's it. And so I thought she does need something maybe a little more mature, something to challenge her. And so I just started looking into everything, and I kept coming back to Sonlight. I just kept coming back to it. And we did samples, and we loved it. And I just prayed and said, if this is what I'm supposed to do, you need to provide the money. God provided the money, like, almost instantly. And so I ordered it, and we've been loving it. It's still extremely expensive to get to Australia. Sonlight, if you're watching this, please help us out. But it's worth it. It's worth it. And it has a really great resale value too. So hopefully that will help as well.
Yeah, that's a great thing. I think that's funny that you mentioned that, because it has a great resale value, but it's also great for if you have multiple students, because buying the reusables is only like $15. So if you're using it for multiple children, it does make it more worth it. The price is more worth it when you're not having to buy, you're not putting them through the same school that you're having to pay for each student.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's why a lot of bigger families here in Australia use it as well. I mean, I've only got one child. I wish I had more. Yeah. So I would have held on to it. But yeah, I'll definitely have to sell it when we're finished, unfortunately. It will be devastating to get rid of those books. So, but another reason I forgot to mention that we are loving Sonlight is because over the past 3 years, I've realized that my daughter really learns well through literature. And that's her learning style. And when I figured that out, I just started incorporating a lot more literature, and now we're at the point where that's all we want to do. So Sonlight is just perfect for that. Absolutely perfect.
They are. I love Sonlight. So, big question. Do you study American history with cores D and E as an Australian?
Okay, I love this question. It's very interesting. So because I only started Sonlight last year, we're actually at like core F. That's the best fit for my daughter. So we're into the world history. However, I would definitely do the American history course, and there's a few reasons for that. Number one is it is so fascinating. American history is fascinating. We love it. And we listen to a bunch of audio stories that are based in America. So there's a lot of American history within that. And I've heard some controversial sort of topics about American history, like, was this really accurate and whatnot? And I personally find that really interesting. So, I mean, America's the biggest country in the world. I mean, to Aussies, it's like, America's, the center of the world in a sense. I don't mean that like in every sense, but in a sense, everyone's fascinated with America. Everyone wants to go there. And I've been blessed to go there a few times. So I love the history. I love the culture. I want to learn more about it. So we would definitely have done those cores. But there are families here, and I know them personally, that are completely turned off Sonlight because of it. Because they don't want to do the American history. Like, why do we need to do a whole year of it? Like, if it's just sprinkled in, great. But, a whole 2 years of American history in Australia, I mean, it just turns a lot of people off. And because they would also have to supplement a ton with Aussie history and Aussie geography. And so it's just too much. It's just too much. So that's why a lot of families are turned off Sonlight, unfortunately, because it's such an awesome program. However, if I were to have more children or whatever, I probably would do it just because I personally love American history. So it's a very interesting question. I think I would love Sonlight to do something about that.
Yeah.
But because they do have a lot of international, customers. So it's interesting. Yeah.
That's very interesting. And I mean, their core F, all about Eastern Hemisphere, was a lot of deeper dive into the whole Eastern Hemisphere, but again, not really Australia. So I think that's interesting, and I feel like that kind of that kind of appeals to anybody in that hemisphere, right? Because they all have something that kind of relates to them. So that is interesting. I wonder if Sonlight will do that more in the future. I wonder if it's something that's in the works. We'll have to ask them. Recommend
they do
something.
Yes, I highly recommend.
Yeah. I mean, I personally, it's funny that you are interested in American history. I would be interested in Australian history. I found that history very interesting and shockingly lacking in like information. In a lot of places, also Hawaii, because I lived in Hawaii for 3 years, and I didn't feel like I knew anything about Hawaiian history when I got there. And it was like a whole new world that opened up my eyes so much living there.
Yeah, and from the perspective of Aussies, I don't know if every Aussie has this perspective, but just from me watching different American YouTubers and also meeting different Americans as well, the US are very sort of, I don't want this to come off wrong, but into themselves in that sense. Like, they learn a lot about their own history, but their own history is impacted by the history of the world at that time, and even now. And so I think that it would really, like, I remember speaking to a lovely woman on Instagram. She had no idea that in their winter is our summer. That boggled her mind. I'm like, what? Don't you learn about this in school, that we're like, there's another whole hemisphere? So I think it would be, it would benefit not just us down here to have some Southern Hemisphere history, but I think it would benefit the Americans as well.
Yeah. So what's a normal day look like for you?
Okay. Well, a normal day is we just get up when our bones want to wake us up, because we had the school and work life for so long that we had that morning rush. So we really enjoy not having to rush in the morning now. So we just get up and we have breakfast, and then we start school as probably the first thing in the day, unless I've got something for work or something like that. And yeah, we just do school. We just take as long as we need. We take as many breaks as we need. I try and get done in the day what I've planned to get done in the day, but at the same time, I don't want to, we just like to go with the flow as well. And I find that works. We get most things done. And then we're pretty much finished with school by 2 p.m. after lunch. And then the afternoon, I usually will work and my daughter will follow her interests. Like she'll do her hobby type stuff, which I try and support that. So she has a couple of hours doing that in the afternoon. And then we just have dinner and then family time, and then we start again the next day. But then other days we're very busy and we're out all day with excursions, and I think you guys call them field trips, and meeting up, piano lessons, all that stuff. So yeah, it's a good life.
So what kind of field trips do you guys do?
Well, we meet up weekly with our homeschool group. So that's different. Like this week we're going to a museum. Last week we just went to a park. So every week is a little different. And then every now and then we'll have like structured excursions, we call them. So that's going to a place and having like a tour or a lesson, learning about different history. And that's actually how we learn the majority of our Aussie history, is actually going to places, historical places, and getting a guide to like take us through it and teach us. And it's the best way of learning Aussie history because you're right there where it happened. So
that's
yeah,
amazing.
awesome.
Yeah. My last question is, what's your favorite part of homeschooling?
Oh, where do I start? I think the first thing that came to my mind is the flexibility. Just to be flexible to, go away whenever we want, or, even as simple as taking a day off whenever we want. Like yesterday, we woke up and we were just like, you know what, we're tired. We had a huge weekend. Let's just have the day off. And we did. And we're not falling behind. We're not missing out on anything. We pick right back up today. And so just that, being able to visit a sick friend whenever we want, or go and help, someone whenever we want, whatever. It's just the best. It's the best. And not being like stuck to a schedule because my daughter needs to be at school at a certain time and be picked up at a certain time and all of that. Yeah, I don't think I ever want to give it up. I don't know what I'm going to do when she's graduated and I'm like, oh, what now? Do I have to go to work now? Yeah, no, it's good.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I'm like, what? I mean, I love the structure, but also the flexibility as well.
Yeah.
So thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you found this insightful. I encourage you to go over to One Single Joy. I'll have a link in the description box so you can easily find part 1 of this video, as well as Danny's channel. And I just encourage you to subscribe, check it out, see what kind of videos she has. She's got awesome videos about grocery hauls, homeschooling, Christian life. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed, and I look forward to seeing you on my next video.